Good evening. Welcome to the Lompoc City Council meeting. This is Tuesday, November 7th, 2017. It is 6:30 p.m. We are returning from a closed session. And City Attorney, do we have any action?
Thank you, Mayor. There were two items on the agenda. Both were discussed, but there's no reportable action.
Okay, thank you. Please rise, remove your hats if you're wearing them, and join us in the invocation by Chaplain Dale Willis.
Amen. If we'd bow our heads. Father, we just thank you for this time, Lord, and we want to acknowledge our National Day for the acknowledgement of the record-keeping personnel for our police department and for the nation. Lord, as we get ready to conduct the city's business, we just ask your blessing on the city council, and we thank you for all the spirit of people who are willing to volunteer and to present their time, Lord, to handle the business of our city. We thank you for our police department. We thank you for our firemen. We thank you for all of those who rush in when we are in harm's way and they put their lives at risk for us. We just thank you, Lord, that you are God. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Amen. Please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Have a seat. You know, early next week we're going to be celebrating Veterans Day, and if there's any veterans in the group, in the audience, would you please stand to be recognized? All right. Thank you all for your service. Presentations elsewhere. On Saturday, I had the honor of presenting a proclamation in honor of the 50th anniversary of the Coast Counties Missionary Baptist District Association, of which several of the Lompoc churches are members. And now I'm going to be presenting several other proclamations here this evening. Let's see, law enforcement. This is Law Enforcement Records and Support Personnel Day. Do we have anyone from the Records Department?
I'll make it stand up later.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, well, this is a proclamation honoring law enforcement records and support personnel. Whereas law enforcement agencies throughout the state depend on law enforcement records and support personnel to provide them with vital services. And whereas law enforcement records and support personnel are crucial to helping law enforcement agencies identify, pursue, capture, and process suspected lawbreakers. And whereas these professionals continually use their expertise and experience to assist in the tracking of felons, maintaining criminal statistics, and improving apprehension strategies. And whereas the California Law Enforcement Association of Records Supervisors will hold its 44th Annual Training and Technology Conference November 13th through the 17th, 2017. And whereas it is important to recognize California's law enforcement records and support personnel for their valuable contribution to our law enforcement system. Now therefore I, Bob Lingle, Mayor, City of Lompoc, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, November 7th as Law Enforcement Records Support Personnel Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say a couple words. So really, the police get all of the kudos for the work that's done, but quite frankly, the records division is the heart of any police department. Everything that goes into a police department, everything that comes out of the police department, everything that's collated and saved and goes to the district attorney's office, nothing happens without record staff, and we have an incredible record staff. in Lompoc. I've been doing this for 34 years. This is the most incredible group of ladies that I've ever seen. So thank you guys. And by the way, could you stand up, please? All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, and now if I could have someone, do we have someone here from Veteran Small Business? Ah, good. All right. How you doing? It's good to see you again. Okay, this is a proclamation, Veteran Small Business Week. Whereas America's progress has been driven by pioneers who think big, take risks, and work hard. And whereas from the storefront shops that anchor downtowns to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge, small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the cornerstone of our nation's promise. And whereas small business owners have energy and passion for what they do on a daily basis. Whereas Lompoc supports local small businesses and the creation of jobs. And whereas Lompoc empowers and encourages veterans, service members, including National Guard and Reserve members, and military spouses, entrepreneurs, and business owners. And whereas there are nearly 2.5 million veteran-owned businesses in the United States that contribute approximately $1.4 trillion to the nation's total sales receipts per year. And whereas Lompoc supports and joins in this effort to help America's veterans, small businesses, do what they do best, grow their businesses, create jobs, and ensure that our communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now therefore, I, Bob Lingle, Mayor City of Lompoc, California, do hereby proclaim the week of October 30th through November 3rd, 2017 as Veterans Small Business Week in the City of Lompoc.
You asked me to bring you guys some numbers. There's really nothing you can say that hasn't been said in this proclamation. Just to give you guys some information on the veterans business that's done here on Vandenberg, I ran some numbers. People ask me what I do for a living. I'm sorry. First of all, my name is Tina Mercer, and I'm the Small Business Director for 30 Space Wing on Vandenberg. And people ask me what I do for a living, and I always kind of refer to the movie War Dogs. If you haven't seen that movie, highly recommend it. If you've seen the movie, the basic premise is there's a federal webpage called fedbizops.com, and all federal contract requirements on every federal installation have to be advertised on there so that we can get the most amount of competition. And if you can find 2 or more veteran-owned small business or women-owned small business, then we can actually further set it aside. Just on Vandenberg alone, last year, we did $5.5 million that was set aside to veteran-owned small businesses and service-stable veteran-owned small businesses. And Air Force Space Command-wide, last year, we did $87 million. That's a lot of money considering they're all very, very small businesses. And my job is just to make that connection. If you're a veteran, if you're women-owned, if you're small disadvantaged business, you call me, I help you get up requirements on the base, and then the people that buy the requirements, I help them find you. So that's my whole job, is to make connections. I joined the Economic Development Committee to help make those connections as well. So anybody ever wants to get a hold of me, I'm on Facebook for 30 Space Wing Small Business and on the Economic Development Committee. And I'm here to help you. Thank you very much. Which one is this? Is that top one? Okay.
Okay, and our last one is National American Indian Heritage Month, and we have some representatives here from, I believe, the DAR. And the Indian, okay. So this is a proclamation, National American Indian Heritage Month. Whereas the history and culture of our great nation have been significantly influenced by American Indians and indigenous people. And whereas the contributions of American Indians have enhanced the freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today. And whereas their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout the United States. And whereas Native American Awareness Week began in 1976 and and recognition has expanded by Congress and approved by President Bush in August of 1990, designating the month of November as National American Heritage Month. And whereas, in honor of National American Indian Heritage Month, community celebrations, as well as numerous cultural, artistic, educational, and historical activities have been planned. Now therefore, I, Bob Lingle, Mayor, City of Lompoc, do hereby proclaim November as National American Indian Heritage Month in Lompoc, and urge all of our citizens to observe this month with the appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. We have one for
Yes,
the
we
DAR
have.
as well.
Okay,
same
this
one.
is for her, this is for me. This is my friend Elaine Snyder, and she is an elder for the Shumash community. And I'm a member of the DAR, and I have a large support group back there for this. And Elaine and I would like to say that we're very, very happy to have such a historical heritage as an American Indian. Thank you.
I thank you all. I'm part of the Shumash tribe and an elder. We thank all of you for your respect and understanding of our native ways and the protection of the land, the people, and everything around you. It has a spirit of life. You have the spirit of life. Protecting it is our duty. Thank you.
City Manager's report.
Nothing to report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Very good report. Thank you. Public comment on the consent calendar. Before we do that, I just want to announce that item number 5 on the consent calendar is being pulled, and it will be presented on the meeting on our 21st. So item number 5 on the consent has been pulled. But public comment on the consent calendar. Consent calendar is generally considered to be routine and will be passed with one motion of the council unless a council member chooses to pull an item.
My name is Deb Andrews, Mission Hills, and I just have a correction to the minutes that were distributed for July 18th. I gave testimony during the closed session, and it says oral communications none. I would like to have my testimony on the record. I can provide a copy of it if that's needed.
I don't think it's necessary, so. Anyone else, consent calendar?
Good evening, Council. Sean Lynn, Lompoc resident. Very briefly, I believe you will pass the DIVCA item on tonight's agenda as the staff has recommended. TAP TV is a great asset to our community, and we're happy to have Comcast continue to pay for it. I just wanted to voice my support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else on the consent calendar? Okay, does any council member wish to pull an item? Okay, as I mentioned, the consent calendar will pass with one motion, and I'd like the person to make the motion as including the correction to the minutes as corrected. So do I have a motion?
I move to approve consent calendar with the minute corrections included,
And exception of number 5.
and with the exception of number 5.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Let's vote. Thank you. That passes 5-0-1. And just 4-0, I'm sorry, 4-0-1. And just for the record, Councilmember Starbuck has an excused absence today. Okay. Staff presentations. No staff presentations. Okay, oral communications. This is your opportunity to speak to us for up to 3 minutes on any item that can come before this council.
Deb Andrews, Mission Hills. The city raised fees for RVs to empty their tanks. According to recent testimony, vouchers to cover the fee for homeless who shelter in RVs was proposed to the city a year and a half ago. The vouchers were not forthcoming. Homeless RV tanks were not emptied and leaked onto city streets. Police confiscated those RVs their homeless owners left to the streets. The measure of a community, state, and its institutions is its care of the least of these. Lompoc, a small city of 44,000 people, invited volunteers to clean up Lompoc on Make a Difference Day. I was stunned to learn several City of Lompoc staff earn higher salaries than the Chief of Staff and Director of Communications for the First Lady of the United States of America. The good of anything is found in its ability to accomplish what it was created for, to realize its purpose for existence. For decades, schools have failed to properly educate students in all subjects, particularly reading, writing, math, and history. The percentage of homeless students in Santa Barbara County has increased 100% in 5 years to 14%. The Census Bureau revealed last month California has the highest poverty rate of any state at 20%. When near poor are included, it rises to 40%. The increase in the gas tax dictated by our sexual predator-infested state capital will wreak havoc in the lives of the poor. All goods are transported, all prices will increase. To quote Karl Marx, when you have economic mobility, you don't go communist. 1 of every 2 of the undereducated millennials surveyed said they would rather live in socialist or communist country over a capitalist one like the United States. In the Santa Barbara News Press, Henry Schulte wrote, "We are now the Soviet state of California. In sum, California government at all levels is failing to serve the people. 40% of Californians are being priced out of housing, gas, and food. This is off the rails. I urge you to cut, simplify, and reform at every opportunity, not tweak. Sweeping corrective action of the existing framework." Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Mayor, City Council members, community. My name is Sue Copeland, and many of you know that I've been working with Eva Blaisdell and other interested parties in bringing the California Space Center here to Lompoc. When I've been looking through different documents, our 2030 general plan, I'm concerned not only for bringing the Space Center, but for improving our community as a whole. Several areas in our land use guidelines or element really limit the possibility of improving Lompoc's economic viability. We know that the majority of the people that were polled in 2016 by myself and students said that they want Lompoc to grow economically and to grow with business. When we look at the growth that is provided or actually limited by our general plan, that's going to be difficult to do. In our policy under Goal 1, it says to maintain a compact urban form and growth pattern which provides adequate space to meet housing, employment, and so forth. Right now, we are pretty much impacted. There's not a lot of room for growth. When we look at policy 1.6, it says areas identified by the city for potential annexation. All of those areas are for housing only. We're pretty much limited to that. The Bailey area, specific plan area, the river area, the Miguelito Canyon area, the Y residential area. Most of that would just be housing. We have more people living here and less people working here. We need to expand and allow more businesses, and our general plan to affect that or to represent that. Also under policy 5, about the valley's natural resources. It's a lot of times in our plan here, it says the word shall versus should. Okay, shall means that it has to happen versus should. So the city shall protect prime agricultural lands to the east and the west of the urban line limit. When we look at our earlier plans for city growth, it went beyond the east and the west, the lines there. And so we're really boxing ourselves in. And it says to preserve agriculture on a regional basis, this city shall encourage Santa Barbara County to do the same, not to allow us to expand. So I think there are many different things. My time is up now, but I would like us to revisit our general plan and look at ways that we can allow for expansion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
City Council members, members of Lompoc. My name is Shondell Malcolm. I'm the Director of Planting a Seed. I just wanted to bring to you tonight some positive things that we've been able to accomplish. We've gleaned nearly 1,500 pounds of produce, which was donated back to the Lompoc Food Pantry. We've cooked over 800 meals for the Lompoc Bridge House. We've helped furnish 5 households transitioning from homelessness. Most recently, coordinating with Carrie Page, an AmeriCorps worker through the Veterans Affairs, where we housed an 83-year-old veteran who experienced homelessness for 40 years. We also housed his friend and caretaker who experienced homelessness for 10 years. Our Lompoc Community Connect event that we throw every year had 100 participants, over 100 participants, that benefited from free health care, free food, free clothing, free haircuts, and free pet care. We recently just did a riverbed cleanup where we removed over 5 tons of debris from the riverbed, including 63 shopping carts, 2 Home Depot utility carts, a disabled person shopping cart, and a pop-up camping trailer. What I am disappointed in is the manner in which our city government operates. My experience with the riverbed cleanup was that the city gave up the sole decision-making to the city attorney, whose role is to advise on matters and not be a decision-maker. Because of the culture in which Lompoc operates, I was forced to waste over 3 months of time negotiating with the city for trash cans. These trash cans were voted on and approved by the city, but unfortunately, because the city attorney put a requirement on me that I could not meet, the trash cans were not provided. But as we did our cleanup, a city representative came and stopped and asked me why we did not coordinate this with the city. And in 15 minutes, in a half an hour, he made a phone call and there was a trash can delivered for us to put our trash in. Before my time runs out, I would like to thank Councilmember Mosby, because he was the only one that came by and supported our efforts. Not only did he support our efforts, he picked up a trash can and he helped clean up some trash with us. I don't have any evidence of that, but believe me, he did do that. I would just like to ask that the city basically get out of its way and let progress happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Bonnie Martin, the wife of a Vandenberg Air Force Base commander. While your cannabis ordinance does not apply to me, as I and our family members and dependents live under federal law and not state law, as your neighbors, it does not impact us. Many of us live in your city limits, shop in your stores, and eat in your restaurants. And because of our mission as a base, we stay in your hotels as well. How this ordinance impacts me as one of your directors of the MOPS chapter here in Lompoc. MOPS is a mothers of preschoolers, and when we looked for a home over 2 years ago, the Lompoc Foursquare opened its doors to us, moms and preschool age children. We meet at Foursquare every other Thursday at the church campus to utilize various church facilities. Our group is made of both military and civilian moms who reside in Lompoc and on the base. It is a healthy, supportive group of moms who gather while our preschool age children are being cared for by screened volunteers in the church's nurseries. Please include this church and others who may have similar programs that support families in your cannabis ordinance exclusion maps. We desire a buffer between where we meet and what we do with cannabis industry. Thanks for your time and listening to my concerns.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please. Okay. Okay, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but we really don't want applause, cheers, boos during public comment. We want everyone to feel very comfortable getting up and stating what they want. If someone has an opposing view to that, they may feel a little intimidated. So I appreciate it, but let's keep it to ourselves. Next, please. See, scared them all away. Okay, we're going to close oral communication and bring it back. We're going to go to item number 6, which is appointments. And the first appointment we have is to the Beautification Commission. We have one term ending December of 2018. This is Councilmember Vega's appointment. Councilmember Vega, would you like to make a nomination?
Yes, I'd like to appoint Scott Reardon to the Beautification Committee.
Okay, and do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes 4-0 with one abstention, or absent. And next we have the Youth Commission. We have 2 youth terms expiring January of 2019 and 1 non-voting term expiring January of 2018. We have 1 applicant. Would someone like to make a nomination?
I'll nominate Nathan Schatz to a youth term expiring in January 2019.
Okay, and do I have a second?
I'll give him a second.
Okay, any discussion? Let's vote. And that passes 4-0 with 1 absent. Okay. Okay, before we go on to the public hearings, could I just get an indication of people that are here for the district elections? Just raise your hands. Okay, there are a few, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the rest of you are here for the cannabis ordinance, I'm assuming. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up to the council. We'd need a majority vote to bring the item number 8 ahead of item number 7.
I think the calendar should stay as it is. The public should be here for both discussions, and the cannabis community should be aware of what district elections are, so I don't feel the need to switch it.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so we'll leave it as this item. So we'll move on to item number 7, which is transition to district-based elections. And this is Mr. Padoni.
Thank you, Mayor. My comments will be brief because we have a presentation that's going to be given to you. This is the 3rd public hearing that you are holding. Tonight is really, again, just for you to get some input. The reasons for that will be explained later. But remember, what this is a process that we're going through in order to, for you to get input from the public on what sorts of district configuration should be had for the city for council seats that would be become district elections rather than elections at large. And to help us through the process, you had Doug Johnson last time, who is from National Demographics, Inc. Corporation, and one of his partners, Shalise Tilton, is going to continue the presentation and even show us some of the maps that are being proposed by both the public and by NDC. Shalise?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. As your city attorney has mentioned, this is part of a process that the city is undertaking to convert from at-large electoral system to by-district election systems. This is a decision that the city council made after receiving a demand letter And in order to enjoy the safe harbor of, and capping of legal fees, and to prevent the city from receiving a lawsuit, the city is following this course of action. This project timeline that you see here is largely driven by the election code. Many of these provisions became effective January 1st of this year. You've already held your 2 mandatory hearings for discussing converting to district elections without seeing any draft maps. So those were held on October 3rd and October 17th. We solicited the public to submit maps. We created a website, drawlompoc.org, and actually we had several maps submitted from the public. We had 7 maps, in fact, submitted by citizens, and 2 that were drawn by NDC professionals. Tonight, we're in the 3rd public hearing. This is your opportunity to see your first draft maps. The law requires that those maps be published 7 days before you're able to make a decision on the maps. NDC has a responsibility for publishing those maps, and the 7-day deadline was not met in this case. Fortunately, we had reserved the December 19th date, so we have the December 5th and December 19th date for the City Council to make a decision and hone in on specific maps. Because it was NDC's responsibility for that 7-day posting, we will be attending the December 19th at no charge to the city. So tonight we'll be showing you the maps. You will have the opportunity to, if you want any revisions to the maps or any changes, this is one fortunate fallout from missing that 7-day deadline. I think we were short by 1 day, and just a glitch in our system that was a first and hopefully last that has ever happened. But fortunately, you'll get the opportunity to make some changes because the law does require if you make any changes to the draft maps, we start over on the 7-day publishing in advance before you're able to make a decision. So tonight, you will not be able to eliminate maps or select a map, but you'll definitely be able to provide your input on maps. And if you see a particular map you like, but it needs to be tweaked in a certain way, then we can accommodate that and publish 7 days in advance of your next hearing, which is November 21st. Our goal is to have a map adopted by December 19th. Then the first elections where the citizens will be voting by district will be in November 2018. There will be 2 seats up in November 2018, and November 2020, the other 2 seats will be up. The city must abide by federal law when they're drawing the districts, and the largest driving factor on that is equal population. We must comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, no racial gerrymandering, and then we have the traditional criteria, which involves communities of interest. And that was really the purpose of the first 2 public hearings, is to identify what those communities of interest are, and that was the purpose of putting the community tools out there so that we can hear what the communities of interest are. We also like to have districts that are compact. They must be contiguous, meaning they all are within one boundary, and follow natural or man-made boundaries. This is really for the voters and the citizens so that they can have a good understanding of where their districts are. If they like a council member, they can go knock on doors and pretty much know where the districts are. That last item there is respecting voters' wishes for continuity of office. What that pertains to is when we are preparing these maps, we are mindful that the voters have selected the council members, and we don't want to limit their ability to re-elect a council member if they feel that council member has earned that right. So that deals with pairing council members in districts. So we will be discussing that as we're looking at the maps. This is a color-coded map that shows where your heavily Latino neighborhoods are concentrated, and they're particularly concentrated between O Street, College Avenue, A Street, and Ocean Avenue. So to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, we need to be able to draw a district that has an effective minority population, majority. So we cannot draw maps that in any way dilute the voting strength of that minority population. We had 7 maps submitted, and NDC, as I mentioned, added 2 additional maps. All the maps are contiguous and all are population balanced. NDC does want to point out some concern with maps identified as 106 and 107. We've assigned these numbers, by the way, so if you're in the audience, you submitted one of these maps, this could be one of your maps. You'll see when I show the maps next. Maps 106 and 107 lack districts where the Latinos have a majority of eligible voters. Eligible voters are the citizen voting age population. So without revising those maps, it would be difficult for NDC to recommend that you adopt either maps 106 or 107. However, they are included in the packet. They'll remain part of your selection until at least your next public hearing. All of these maps are posted on drawlompoc.org, so anyone can go and look at these maps. And also, when you look at the maps, it's 2 pages. So scroll to page 2, and you can see the demographic breakdown of each of these maps. What we try to do when we're demonstrating the maps, especially when we have more than 4 or 5 maps, is group them together by maps that share similar characteristics. So maps 102 and 103 have a Northeast District 2 and kind of a Central District 3. So we group these together just for discussion purposes, and it will assist you later when you are selecting the type of map that you prefer. So both bring District 1 down along the west side of town, with District 2 coming across the north side of District 3. We did have some comments submitted with these maps. The author of 102 wrote, "It has compact districts that balance all the neighborhoods, namely Northwest, East, South, and Central. This was done based on the mathematics of population only and did not take into account where the current council members live." The author of 103 wrote, "Redistricting plan with core Hispanic area not divided." In map 103, that Central District 3 is 58% Latino as far as citizen voting age population. And map 101 for its District 3 is 53% Latino by citizen voting age population. So we are complying with the Federal Voting Rights Act is not diluting that voting strength. Both maps put council members Osborne and Vega together in District 1 and council members Mosby and Starbuck together in District 4. Maps 106 and 107 keep District 1 in the north, dividing the areas below North Avenue among 3 vertical districts. So we're calling these vertical districts, at least districts 2, 3, and 4 are vertical. The author of map 106 wrote, "This map recognizes the area between College and North Avenue as a focal point for the dense urban population by giving a fair representation to the demographics of Lompoc for each district." The author of 107 wrote, "The map considers communities of interest, western border impacts, eastern border impacts, northern border impacts, all while maintaining contiguous districts." And in both maps, no council members are paired together in one district. However, these are the 2 maps with no majority Latino district. Now, when we don't have a majority Latino district, when it's possible to draw one, then this raises concerns about potential liability under the Federal Voting Rights Act. Maps 101 and 105 are characterized by a North District 1 and a Central West District 2. They have a Northern District 1 and 2 vertical districts dividing the middle of the city, with the 4th district covering the city's southern area. In 101, the Central District areas are entirely between North Avenue and Ocean Avenue, while in map 105, the central area only goes down to Western, and the Eastern District 3 wraps around to the south side. down to the south to the east of D Street. In map 101, District 3 has a 51% Latino by citizen voting age population, and its District 2 is 47%. In map 105, District 2 is 52% Latino by citizen voting age population, and its District 3 is 39%. Map 101 is just barely population balanced. It's acceptable. It's pushing it a little bit at 9.49% overall deviation. 10% would not be acceptable, so that's just barely below the maximum. The author of 101 did not provide any comments about it. The author of 105 wrote, "There's an evenly distributed map of the community with parks, schools, businesses, and ethnic geographics equally represented." Maps 108 and 109 have more of a southwest-southeast split between Districts 3 and 4, which moves District 2 further north on the edges. This configuration has the advantage of matching heavily Latino District 2 with the council's current Latino council member, Mr. Vega, and uniting neighborhoods around Lompoc High School instead of placing the high school on the border of a district. District 2 in map 108 is just over 50% Latino citizen voting age population, with District 3 at 43%. So you have two very strong districts. In map 109, District 2 is 60% Latino, and its District 4 is second highest at 38%. It should be noted that even at 60% of the citizen voting age population, Latinos are still only 42% of registered voters and 32 to 38% of voters casting ballots, depending on whether it's a presidential or primary election. Both these maps avoid pairing council members into any districts. These maps 108 and 109 were drawn by NDC. Should know that when we look at drawing maps, we take into consideration the comments that were received at the previous meetings, as well as oftentimes we'll get maps and maybe it's just natural for someone to focus in on their particular district where they live and then just balance out the other districts. So sometimes we're able to combine maps to get a good balance. Map 104 has a Northwest District 1, a Central District 3, an East District 2, and a Southwest District 4. We didn't match it with another one because it was unique enough to stand on its own. It's somewhat similar to 109. But District 4 extends further north, and District 3 is more square. The submitter of this map wrote, "This is an evenly distributed map of the community with parks, schools, businesses, and ethnic geographics equally represented. Map 104 is population balanced with less than 1% overall population deviation. District 3 is a majority Latino citizen voting age population at 58%, and its other three districts are about 1/3 Latino by citizen voting age population." This is a summary of all of the maps. So you can to see the maximum Latino, that citizen voting age population, and the second highest district for the maps. So that shows you the strength of your first place, your highest Latino concentration, and your second highest Latino concentration. That last column identifies if there are council members that are paired in any of the maps. So this is the start of the discussion. These maps are still open to revision. At this point, we're asking which maps you think are best. What would you change about the maps? I know it's difficult to see all these maps on one page, but sometimes this is helpful, and we can definitely jump back and forth to maps as well. And like I said, today is you will not be asked to eliminate maps or to hone in on a particular one, but definitely if you see one or two that you like or that you would like to revise, it would be useful for us. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer questions.
Any comments or questions? Okay. I was looking at these, and I kind of made a comment on map number 3. I was looking at the demographics, and it looks like, I don't know how important it is, but that map number 3 most closely reaches the goal of equal distribution. The deviation was only 0.58% from the ideal 9807 population per district. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And it also has, let's see, there's predominantly Hispanic in 2 of the areas, so that was interesting. So three looked very interesting to me. And then 2 had a similar, very, very low deviation from the ideal of 9,800 voters per district. So just comment on that. 2 and 3 look really good for evenly distributed.
And like I said, with all of the maps, they are all population balanced, so that's not going to be a concern at all. So having ones that are entirely equal is not as large of a concern as making sure we don't dilute the strength of the citizen voting age population for your minority Latino population.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, we'll open this up to the public. From the public.
Nicholas Gonzalez, resident of Lompoc. I'd like to reiterate the concern. If the point of this process is to create a minority-majority district, I would hope that you would take into consideration the percentage of voters as opposed to strictly the population. The population won't count if the voters are not there to vote. So I would just like you to take that into serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jacqueline Inda. I am the leader of the District Elections Committee in this county. I'm here to speak on behalf of Erica and Sarah, who are your potential plaintiffs. The purpose of district elections is to have equal representation on council, which means you want to identify a map that's balanced that creates not 1, but 2 majority-minority districts. The one that's closest to that is map 1. This isn't about the current council members, and it isn't about what council will be running next. This is strictly about identifying the population that you have and having folks on council that live and breathe in their districts so that every neighborhood is properly represented on council. That doesn't mean creating districts that would only allow for 1 majority-minority district. It means creating a balance, which would mean 2 majority-minority districts, and the only one that properly represents it with the most density of not only voting population, but population at large is District 1. So we hope that you take that into consideration, because that's really where we're looking towards moving this forward to, is a balance on council, no matter who's sitting on it now, but to allow people in their communities, in their neighborhoods, to grow up, be civically engaged, participate in any way or form, and then be able to run and be elected in their neighborhoods. And of course, the most important thing is so that council members are then responsible and liable to their voters, so that if the voters within those districts do not support the way the council member is representing them, they have the power to then move forward a process to elect another representative. So again, we urge you to really support your district map 1 because it actually has that balance. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
Mayor, City Council members, thank you for your time and your service today. I am here, I spoke to you last time about the famous author Maya Angelou and the dear Martin Luther King, and talking about voices that have not been heard. And so I'm excited to see this moving forward, district elections, and how the city's coming together to hear the different voices in the community. I as well am for map 1, because I believe it provides the most growth, the most opportunity for those voices to be heard in the community. As it was mentioned, the most ethnic, cultural, and civic-minded organizations are in these locations, as well as education centers and parks and recreation areas. And so that is vital for the culture and the people to come together and for vibrancy to be shared in the community. Not only for people to play, but people to gather, and voices to be shared, and for the community to come together as one, not just in City Hall, but in city parks, in city homes, in city schools, and for the funding, and for the organizations that are already there. And so yes, there is a deviation that is noted to be a bit higher, but that does not take into consideration the full voting bodies that will be able to count. And so that deviation is doesn't really look at the true population count. And so even though there is ones with lower numbers, I believe the balance, as that was just previously mentioned, is what is the key when we're looking at these districts that are going to be important and vital to allowing the voices to be shared within our communities. It is not about who is going to be on or off city council. It's about the voices of the people and coming together to build a strong city that can grow and to be a vibrant place that's close to the ocean and a place that people will want to come to for long times and to invest their families in, with strong schools, strong businesses, in a strong city that will be vibrant with restaurants and businesses. And the way that is happening is through shared responsibility and shared input through city council that represents the people and the voices that are here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Jatsibe Sandoval. I'm District Elections Committee member. I'm here to voice my support for MAP 101. I completely agree with the whole minority, the higher minority of Latinos in MAP 1, but I also want to make a point that MAP 7 and 6 and 5 are unacceptable. It doesn't even begin to reach what we want or what the community can better help better raise the civic engagement or just have more diversity on the city council. So I urge you to take a closer look at MAP 101. It's not the finished draft of the map that would properly, spacing here. It's not the proper map that would actually get the full range of diversity on the city council, but it's a start. And thank you again for letting this be a discussion today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Members of council, my name is Lanny Ebenstein. I'm also a member of the Santa Barbara County District Elections Committee. Thank you for your service to our community and for the time and effort that you've spent on these issues thus far and that you're undoubtedly going to continue to spend in the coming weeks and months. These are really important decisions, and from having been involved in these issues elsewhere, there's no question that the communities that have implemented district elections have found them to be a great asset and result in greater representation for all aspects of the community. The City Council of Lompoc has made the right decision for all members of the community in moving toward district elections. Particularly with respect to representation issues, I believe that MAP 1 is probably the best map on a conceptual basis of all the maps that have been presented to you, especially looking toward the future, because it's going to be the case that the city of Lompoc is going to continue to become more diverse, and I believe that the districts that have been identified, 2 and 3, within MAP 1, are the best forward-looking districts as to what will be the best for the city of Lompoc, not just now, but in the future, in particular following the 2020 census. And as other speakers have mentioned, I think it's important that maps are drawn based on the long-term interests of the community. And I know how difficult it is as a former elected official myself to say that there should be a priority toward what's the best for the community rather than particular candidates for office, including even incumbent candidates. But clearly, that's the best route to go. What's the best districts for the community in the long run, not considering who current individuals are or who individuals are who might be candidates in the future. So I would strongly encourage you to make the decision on the basis of what's the best for the long run. And along those lines as well, when it comes to the sequencing of districts and whether, as in some of the maps, there might be more than one current member of the council within a district, that's a decision too that should be made on the basis of what's in the long-term interest of the community in setting up the sequence of elections rather than any particular candidates. So again, thank you so much for your interest and involvement in this issue and bringing it along. Based on the experience elsewhere, I'm sure all residents of the city of Lompoc will benefit from district elections. We think that District Map 1 is the best map. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Jaime Tiroko, City of Lompoc citizen. Also, map 101, I think is the best because it goes east to west. It doesn't go north to south. All the other ones are pretty much compacting 70% of the Latinos with only one district. This map allows two districts with 65, 64%. So, and this was based on the 2010 census, so it's even bigger now. So I think 101 will be the best choice. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close public comment on this, bring it back to the council. Ma'am, would you, if you wouldn't, were there comments on map number 1 by the center?
Map number, sorry, let's see. Okay, this is a summary of the statistics for 101. And this is map 101. The comments that were submitted by the author of map 101 actually did not provide any comments about it. Its District 3 is 51% Latino by citizen voting age population. Its District 2 is 47% 40% citizen voting age population. The citizen voting age population is what the courts look at when they're talking about the strength of the district to influence the outcome of an election. For map 101, this is the map that has an overall deviation of 9.49%, which is within the acceptable 10% maximum deviation. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Okay, any comments from the council? If not, we just have to receive this report. Okay, thank you very much for being here this evening. Oh, I'm sorry.
Kind of rushed that.
Go ahead.
Okay. For the next discussion, I think it would be helpful to the community to have some of these maps in a larger format that we might be able to take some time and allow the community to stand and look at for those that haven't gone to the website and haven't looked at. So if that's a possibility as well, because I think getting up and looking at them close for those who hadn't yet seen them would be an opportunity and provide more discussion. So maybe getting here a little bit early, putting them up, and if citizens want to arrive early and look at them and give input, I highly recommend you go to the website. The second question I have is, did the window close on submitting maps, or is that window still open? Can anyone still go in and work with some of these maps that exist and resubmit them, or has public input online completed?
We can accept maps up to November 10th, which is just a couple days from today.
Right.
But yes, if someone would like to submit a map, they can do so through Lompoc.org.
Okay.
Also on that map, on that website is where you can view the maps. And at the next meeting, if we have internet connectivity, as they're speaking of a map, we can actually show it up on the screen. What's useful about going to that website is you can see the demographic breakdown in all different types of categories for all interests. But we can certainly have some printouts available, so folks who want to come early to the next public hearing.
So part of that is not all our community has access to, especially some of this community that is requesting this voting opportunity. So they don't all have access to the internet to look at these things and see those breakdowns. So I think it's really important. The second thing is when you're looking at them on a small screen, it doesn't show up well, and you have to understand how to work the software and what to click. And if that is part of the challenge, then you aren't going to get the most out of the information. So while I went to the website and I played with each of the maps and the maps that have been posted and did all those things, I'm thinking about my constituency who might not feel comfortable, might not have access, but want to see it. So I think, unfortunately, we still have a portion of our community that we need to treat in a traditional manner to make sure they have full access to these things. So.
And they can be available through the city clerk's office to come in and look at the maps.
Great.
Could I just ask, are you asking you'd like to see the maps on poster board?
Yeah, I think that would be great, so that anything that we think are viable maps that we really want to have a discussion for, so that we can get input and maybe in a quicker way that isn't necessarily someone getting up and standing here. In watching the other communities that have gone through this, they have often put the maps up and given them dots and say, you have 3 maps that you like, go put your dots on, so that we can get great feedback from those that are present quickly without it potentially turning into 3 minutes and 50 people. We might be able to accelerate the feedback from the community for those that aren't comfortable getting up and speaking at the podium.
So just so that I'm clear, so what you're thinking is, if the meeting's going to start at 6:30, and then say at 6 o'clock or 5:45, we have the poster boards here, and people are able to come in and look at them.
Yeah.
Councilmember Mosby.
Hi. Now, in looking at your tool that you had up there, it seemed like the table of demographics relating to the tool was based on different data sets than what we have here. Then when you go on your representing here, it was using like 2010 numbers, and it was giving you percentage of populations based on that point. It wasn't using, all the characteristics that you have here, whether it's voting age, population, citizens, and such. So if somebody is drawing a map using your tool, they're not seeing the same data sets that they have here.
They will. Are we able to? If we're able to have internet connectivity, I can show you. But yes, we have to meet the population balance requirement, the federal requirement. We have to go by the 2010 total population. But when we're looking at the effectiveness of a minority district, we look at the citizen voting age population. So for each of the maps that has been drawn, if you go to the city's website, you can just click on the map number. It'll show you the map, the picture of the map. Then page 2 will show you a breakdown of the total population from the 2010.
I've got that. What I'm getting
per
at is
district and the citizen voting age population. As you scroll down, you'll see the citizen voting age population.
I've got that here. I get that. What I'm talking about is when the maps are being drawn, you aren't able to relate to the demographics of 14 like they have here. So when you're drawing the map and you're trying to see what percentage that you have of voting age and such, you're not able to see that.
If you use the Excel spreadsheet tool, you're able to see that.
And has the 2014 numbers on it, or just the 2010?
It has both. both the total population and the citizen voting age population. As well
As you're
the other.
drawing the maps?
As you're drawing, if you're using the Excel's tool.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Vega.
I can see the positives to maps 101 and several other maps, 108, 109, as far as representation for the Hispanic community. I think it's interesting that the mayor noted that maps 2 and 3 looked interesting to him. You know, there are no further comments, but I wanted to just note that so people that are in favor for the California Voting Rights Act can know exactly which way people are leaning on some of these maps. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we are going to now go to item number 8, which is adoption of ordinance number 1640(17), amending chapter 9.36 of the Lompoc Municipal Code. And this will be Mr. Pannoni.
Thank you, Mayor. So what's before you this evening is basically the ordinance that you had introduced last meeting, and it's here for a second reading and adoption. It includes all of the typographical or other minor amendments that you had suggested and that I had suggested at the last meeting, and it's ready for adoption. I'd like to also remind you and remind the public that this won't be the last time that cannabis issues are brought before you. The ordinance itself calls and recognizes that there's going to be a resolution that's going to be presented to you that has further regulations on the types of uses that would be permitted and the way those types of use would be permitted. The plan is to bring that to you on December 5th because that's 2 days before the ordinance becomes effective if it gets adopted tonight. And those regulations will be made available to the public, and it will have input as it should, input from the police department, the fire department, planning, and there'll be an application form that will be presented to you for approval so that everyone knows what the process is going to be. In addition to that, there'll be a resolution that establishes the fees that will be charged, because if you remember, the council, all 5 of you, wanted to make sure that there was 100% cost recovery on the city's part for processing and reviewing and auditing this use. And then in addition, based on my understanding of what the council had previously discussed and wanting to potentially use this new uses as a revenue generator, next year, probably before June, to make sure the city clerk is happy, before June, we'll bring before you a ballot measure for taxes on the different uses in different categories, and that will be established by you, and we'll come to you with some suggestions based on what other communities have done, wanting to make sure that the revenue that's generated is helpful to the city, but doesn't create such an expensive additional expense to the people who pay the tax that we continue to harbor the black market. So we'll need to reach that balance. So based on that, I don't have any more comments, and I'm here to answer your questions if you'd like.
Any questions for Mr. Pannoni? Okay, we'll open this up to the public.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Bernie Fetterman. For the past 31 years, I've had the honor of being the senior pastor of a great church, the Lompoc Foursquare Church. During that time, our church has seen exponential growth. We have determined to use our influence, our resources, and our growing congregation to impact Lompoc, Vandenberg families, children, and youth in positive ways. Our heart and mission is to love and serve and add value to our community. And hopefully over the years, we have proven that by our words and our deeds. Last week, our free family fun block party on the 100 block of North C Street and our campus was one thing we do to serve our community. It impacted over 3,500 children, youth, and family members. This party is free, safe, fun, and allows people on October 31st a great place to be. As many churches do, we offer religious education for both adults and youth. In our case, well over 250 children from birth to 5th grade attend our campus on any given Sunday, not to mention our middle and high school students as well. We offer after-school and evening activities like tonight. Elevate Youth Ministry is using our youth center for 7th through 12th grade students. They utilize this campus for recreation, social connections, and faith-based teaching. We've hosted local nonprofit basketball tournaments. We've been the site for Lompoc Little League Picture Day and AYSO pictures if it rains. Each year we provide various classes, skills training for children and youth, and we even have summer high school intern programs for kids who can't get jobs. We train them, we pay them. Santa Barbara County Child Welfare Services uses our campus every Wednesday afternoon free of charge to provide supervised visits for parents who the courts feel are capable of being reunited with their children. And for 20 years, our church has been a part of the Lompoc Community Kitchen that provides between 80 and 150 free meals every Monday night for under-resourced children and their families. This is only the short list. Our church leadership, and many of them are here tonight. I didn't invite all 1,200, hope that's okay. But they are here tonight. Raise your hand like you just don't care. Okay, good. I know you care. We would like to be included in the 600 and 1,000-foot buffer exclusion zones and be treated as a youth center. We respectfully request that you add churches of all denominations, not just ours, and all religious faiths, not just ours, into the exclusion zone maps, and treat us all as you would a youth center. So please recalculate the maps and the locations that are prohibited from commercial sales, cannabis-related businesses, and cannabis usage. We believe our request will prove to be positive for all people, even those on both sides of the cannabis ordinance. I'm grateful for your consideration and your time tonight, and thank you for all you do to serve our city.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. Hi, my name is Melissa Paz, and I've been a resident of Lompoc Foursquare Lompoc Foursquare for 28 years. I am not here today only as a resident, but as a children's ministry director of 15 years at Lompoc Foursquare Church. The pictures you'll see on the screen will show you just a small glimpse of some of the activities we provide for children and youth on our campus, daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. As a department lead, over 70 volunteers who impact children, 200 exactly, or more weekly. Not only do we see and minister to children on Sunday mornings, but during all different times of the week. With our recent block party, which brings over 3,500 people to C Street and our adjacent parking lots, of which more than half we can easily say were children and youth. During the summer, we put on a music clinic and a children's summer program during weekdays where over 150 children participate in that week alone. We hold special themed programs for kids, like this year's faith-based cooking classes, which we held during the evenings. We have even held a snow day with over 11 tons of snow that brought over 1,500 people, with the majority of them children and youth. And with our holidays approaching, we will be holding rehearsals for our children's Christmas musical, helping children and youth utilize their talents in a creative way. Time does not allow me to tell you all that we do or all that I lead, but hopefully you understand and see that children and youth programs are not just Sunday mornings. We are a center for children and a center for youth that operates throughout the week. As I close, I would like to leave you with one question. What makes children who attend a youth center or a child care facility any different from the children that attend a church? I strongly feel, and hopefully you would agree, absolutely nothing. I would humbly request that you would see what we do as a positive impact on children and youth in our community, and would classify churches as children and youth centers to be included in the buffer that other children and youth centers are being afforded in the current cannabis ordinance. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Tiffany Woodworth. I moved to Lompoc area in 1998, and in 2004, I purchased a home in the 200 block of North C Street. I've lived there for 13 and a half years. We love our city, and we choose to be here. I would like to voice my concerns surrounding the zoning of cannabis dispensaries and cannabis-related businesses. As a mother of 2 children, ages 12 and 9, I'm deeply concerned about the potential locations for the cannabis dispensaries being allowed to conduct businesses in various areas throughout our city. My children and I have been active members of Lompoc Foursquare Church for 8 years, and both my kids are involved in youth programs there. Besides regular Sunday attendance, my daughter attends the Elevate Youth Group that's going on tonight, Tuesday nights at the church. They both attend Vacation Bible School during the summer, as well as the Harvest Party and other countless other small groups and classes that are there for children and teens throughout the year. I know our church, like many other churches in Lompoc, focus on children and youth and believe that they are our future. I'm troubled that all churches are not included in the 600 or 1,000-foot buffer and are not being treated like other facilities that have childcare and youth centers. I find it alarming that cannabis dispensaries and businesses would be allowed so close to any facility where children are present, including but not limited to churches, music facilities, sports and recreation facilities, parks, or any facility where children are present, but that does not have the daycare youth center status. But they're serving our children, our future, and providing positive influence. I'm also requesting that my council members here include all churches in your buffer exclusion areas. I believe that if the council doesn't carefully consider the zoning and locations for the cannabis business, it could possibly have a negative financial impact on the businesses, because I know for myself, I might be hesitant to continue conducting business where a dispensary is located, especially if I have to walk past it with my kids to go shopping or to go out to eat. Perhaps the zoning could be on the outskirts of the city, somewhere that doesn't impact the daily lives of our city's families. I would like to thank you for your time and listening to my concerns regarding the issue, and I hope that you will consider my concerns as you continue to deliberate and fine-tune the issue of zoning for the cannabis ordinance.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jane DeWeese, and I am a 30-year resident of Lompoc. I have 2 concerns this evening. The first concern I have is the unlimited number of dispensaries that you are going to allow within the cities. I have been a teacher for 31 years, 29 of those, actually 30 of those in the Lompoc area. I taught both elementary and middle school children, and I am extremely, extremely concerned about the fact that we are going to allow unlimited dispensaries within our city limits. I have firsthand seen the impact of drugs and alcohol, including marijuana, on young people and their families. And I just can't see that we are being totally responsible and responsive to our children when we are going to allow unlimited dispensaries within the city. So I'm asking that you reconsider and that you limited it. We don't know what the repercussions are going to be of having dispensaries within our cities. So it's something that you can change at a later date, but I earnestly ask that you reconsider and limit the number of dispensaries. My second concern is one that's been expressed extremely well by the past 2 ladies, and that's that churches and playgrounds also be included in the buffer zone. Children are so precious. They are our future. We need to give them the best possible future we can. Children are curious. If they are close to a place that looks forbidden, they are going to be attracted to it. So there are places where adult activities can take place. The law restricts alcohol and let's see, I have it on my paper here. Alcohol beverage control may deny any retail license located within the immediate vicinity of churches and hospitals or within at least 600 feet of schools, public playgrounds, and nonprofit youth facilities. So I strongly encourage you again to look at changing the buffer zone to include parks and churches where our children go to play. Your own ordinance states that its provisions are to mitigate or reduce impacts which are contrary to policies that are intended to promote and maintain the public's health, safety, and welfare. So I ask that you please consider not just the needs of the adults in this community, but of all of our city's citizens' safety and welfare when you vote on this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, my name is Leland Simpson, and I work in Lompoc. I intend to have a house here real soon, make this my permanent residence. And I don't think it's fair. I think that the whole purpose of this cannabis revolution is to stop the prohibition attitude. I am pro-cannabis, and I don't think that just because a church, I'm a Christian, I love God just as much as anybody, and I don't think that the church should be bigoted, any church should be bigoted towards any people or any business. The lady just said that alcohol cannot be sold within 600 feet she didn't say 600 feet. She said it cannot be sold near a church. And I think on this topic, you should rely on the state guidelines. The state does not guideline 600 feet from a church. It does from schools. It does from where children, are every day, are congregated every day for hours of the day. That's fair. However, a church, it's not very welcoming for a church to single out a group of people. This is a business just like any other business. It's operating in the state of California now, and I feel like it's bigoted against the cannabis industry. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
My name's Amy Schwind. I'm 22, and I've lived in Lompoc since I was born. Born here. I went to Lompoc Foursquare Church since I was a child as well, since I was about 3 years old, and since the elementary school was still upstairs at the church. And I am now in the cannabis industry, and I went to Foursquare Church 3-4 days out of the week. I grew up there. I ran away there. That was my hideout. That was where I went away from my family. That's where I went to make my friends. The people that have been speaking have basically raised me, and they'd helped me through all of the hard times that I've had. And I'm very Christian. You walk into my office, which is on a cannabis farm, and there's scriptures everywhere. And all of my employees, pull a scripture out of a box every day, and they read their scripture. And they come into my office and they write their scriptures on the wall for me to look up. And every day on our daily schedules, we have a scripture written on the left top-hand corner that all of the guys go through and they look up every day. It's not something that needs to be ridiculed. It's not something that needs to be, looked down on. Like, we work just as hard as everybody else. And if not, we're working harder to try to make it okay with everybody. Like, this is my lifestyle. This is what keeps me happy. This is what I've done now since I was 18. I got into this industry. I started doing the social media. I started just like any other kid starts, but it's more than just weed now. It's an actual lifestyle. It's helping people. It's helping kids. It's getting people off of methamphetamines in Lompoc. It's helping kids with a bunch of kids, helping cancer. It's doing a lot more than what people are giving us credit for. And I think that really needs to be put into your guys' minds. On my workforce, we have about 20 employees, and half of those employees, I have 10 employees that are veterans. And they are the ages of 27 to 32, and all of those guys came from Afghanistan, and they've fought for every one of these people in this room, and they were all on artillery, and they care, and they have passion in what they do. And we all have passion. Everybody who has a job and has a business here, young like myself or older, it doesn't matter. We have passion for what we do, and everybody needs to remember that. It's not something we're trying to do. We don't want you guys to be scared when you're walking past dispensaries. It's nothing like that. I'm not scared when I walk past a liquor store. Like, I'm 22, I don't drink. I've never went into a bar. That's not anything that I'm interested in. Like, I smoke cannabis. It's my medicine. It's what we do. It's not the alcohol thing. It's just different, and I really hope you guys can understand that. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mark Hashimala, citizen. I hope to be one of the dispensary owners soon as we get this process forwarded. I apologize to the community, especially the church community. This isn't what we wanted to do and put it in your face, but it is. It's been legal here in California 20 years now, as medical dispensaries are concerned. I'd like to see the turnout, but I brought this up September of 2016, and we've been working on this ever since. And you could have started back then, and we could have discussed it, and I could have educated you, and you could have educated me on what you felt your beliefs are. This group we're about to serve beer. You're about to be able to buy a taco at Taco Bell and have a beer with your child here next to you. You can go do your laundry with a beer with your child next to you. You can go, what was it? Oh, Starbucks. You can go have a glass of wine and a beer with your child next to you. But you seem to be so concerned about the children that you're here tonight. It's a little frustrating for me. I work in the riverbed. I work with the drug addicts here in town, the methamphetamine addicts and the heroin addicts. You guys have no idea what kind of a problem we're dealing with because you have blinders on. You go to your church, you go to your job, you go to your house. Everything seems really peachy keen here in town. You don't see the problems. I'm trying to help your children that are out there with a needle in their arm. With a needle in their arm, because I want to switch them to CBDs onto something else that can help them. But again, you want to bring this up, and it's a big fight. It seems to be a big fight in our community. If you're fighting against the legal, the people that want to make this legal and legit, then you are supporting the cartels and the drug dealers and what's going on in our alleys. It is literally going on right now in our town. There is no disputing that. There's no, it's going to be coming in massive amounts. It's here. It's here and it's illegal. But if we legalize it, we tax it, and we do what we can solve a lot of the other problems that we're having in this town, like the heroin and methamphetamine. And this is a serious epidemic. If you don't know about it, please, I will take you to the riverbed. I will show you the people with their needles. We lost 2 in the last month. But it doesn't seem to be a problem to anyone else but me, because the cannabis is here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd just like to remind the public and the council that tonight's comments are to be directed to you, rather than be sure that we protect the decorum of the meeting tonight. I would suggest that we make the comments be to you, because that's what the point is tonight.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Lingo, council members. My name is Rob Traylor, and I'm a Lompoc resident. I'm also someone who's been a part of this discussion for nearly a year. I've seen firsthand the impact of informed civic engagement, and I've seen policy shift in reaction to public demand, and I've seen change implemented in direct response from comments from this podium. And this entire issue is a case study in activism, and it's kind of ironic that we had a conversation about civic engagement on the previous agenda item. But if you show up to the table and you're engaged in public discourse, you can affect change. And the folks behind that change should be proud of themselves. Conversely, if you remain on the fringe and you stay silent at public hearings and you only show up at the 11th hour, well, like I used to tell my daughter, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit.
Thank you, sir.
I'm ready. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and citizens. Rich Smith, resident and business owner, and hopefully I'm going to be opening one of the first dispensaries in town, as well as a manufacturing facility with some really nice high-paying jobs, and not minimum wage-paying jobs. So, reiterating the past 2 speakers, here we are at the potential last meeting to adopt the cannabis ordinance, and now all of a sudden, one church is forcing itself into the spotlight. The request to include churches in the business setback exclusion zone for all cannabis businesses is a severe overreach by the churches. I mean, they're trying to impose their moral authority on city policy by using children, where they have no problem, like, they can drink next to their children, they don't have any issues with that. Liquor stores have their doors wide open, and kids go in there and they buy snacks and chips and sodas, and then the liquor's right there. But you guys don't have any problem with that. Also, they don't have any problem with the the tons of narcotics, that Walgreens issues, that CVS issues, Walmart, all the pharmacies in town that are leading to the heroin epidemic that are killing people in the riverbed daily or weekly. You don't seem to have an issue with that because all of a sudden, you know, the devil's lettuce is here and we got to do something about it. You know, it's been a year. I've been participating in this process for a year, and now you guys are here. I would have loved, like I said, to educate you, and you would have seen the thoroughness that the ad hoc committee went through to formulate this cannabis ordinance and kind of make some progressive changes for our city to help the business environment and, you know, create some new jobs and bring in some revenue for the city, open up grants for our police department because we're going to be regulating cannabis where they wouldn't get that extra money potential if we don't regulate it. This is, you know, if you do this, you're just going to kill the cannabis industry. And I know a lot of you folks in here want to do that, but I mean, we're going to fight tooth and nail. We're not going to allow that to happen because reefer madness is over and it's time to wake up and let adults be adults and let the government do their job and let adults, you know, do what they feel is right as an adult. I mean, the other thing too, if you do this, if you want to include churches, you're going to have to define what a church is. Are you ready to do that? Because you're guaranteed to bring litigation if you go down that route, defining what a church is. If you don't want to define a church, then I guess I can just open up a church with a letterhead and I can have a daycare center and have minimal regulations because I'm a church. It's really funny that all of a sudden, at the very end, they show up. So
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you.
Hi there, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Cameron, entrepreneur, business owner. I wanted to come and speak today. A couple items. I do have young children, and I do go to church, although I do not support having the churches in this buffer zone. One thing in particular, the state has already issued very stringent guidelines as to what is and isn't allowed. I would hope that the City Council will follow suit and move forward with those recommendations. The other thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that I'm really disappointed for the churches because I feel as though them coming out and standing against progress and moving things forward is actually going to damage your guys' membership. There's a lot of people in the cannabis community that are religious, and I think that if you're not a part of the community and you are restricting people and basically saying, hey, we do not want you near us, we don't want your kind coming to our church, that is really damaging the overall church community. And I think everyone in this room knows churches have had some struggles with topics lately in the news. So I'm against expanding the ban zones, and just wanted to make my comment known. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Less than 1 moment. I'm just gonna read. Good evening, Council. My name is Todd Mitchell. I'm a resident of Grover Beach. I've been coming and participating in the ad hoc and these meetings for quite some time. I actually really applaud you for moving along and accepting this ordinance, and I think there's, you know, some smaller details left to work out. Under your 9.36.120, you limit the manufacturing, distribution, and some other portions to either business parks or industrial uses. I can see for the safety of people possibly limiting volatile extraction to the industrial area, but otherwise I'm not sure why you limited those other uses to those areas, as they could possibly be in the other commercial zones. And then in regards to the distance from sensitive uses, the 600-foot setback is very clearly written from a K-12 school by California law, but you as a council have the opportunity to establish distances that you deem appropriate from other sensitive uses, including places where children gather. We or I would request that the council consider limiting this to direct neighbors or a lesser distance such as 100 feet. And with the knowledge that as the cannabis businesses are going to need to go through a use permit and a land use process, that the neighbors will be informed and invited to share their opinions at that point in time before a license is issued. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Tiffany, and I'm a current resident of the city of Lompoc. And it seems like the main concern of the church members is public safety, but more so the safety of the children. And I think the regulation of cannabis will set forth rules and regulations which will help ensure the safety of the public. A member said earlier that, and I found it pretty silly, that the addition of dispensaries to the city will lure and seduce children in because they are curious. But I think it's important not to ignore the fact that cannabis is already readily available. And I think it's children's friends and peers who are going to be the ones to introduce that instead of dispensaries. In fact, along with the concerns, there are some positive requirements that the policy will bring forth, including criminal background checks for operators and employees, extensive record keeping, installations of high-tech video recording systems and security systems, product testing, odor controls, and a prohibition of outdoor cultivation for both personal and commercial operations. And I just wanted to add that the rules that will be set forth will not only ensure public safety, but generate more local jobs and stimulate the economy, generating substantial revenue for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor, hi, and Councilman, I'm Chelsea Phoebe, and I'm a Lompoc member, or Lompoc person, born and raised, and I'm not normally a person that talks, but I feel like this is something really important to me. I work in the cannabis industry, and I have the opportunity to have a business here in town. And with that said, that would bring, employment here for our Lompoc people. And I hope that you guys adopt the California regulations. Because if you don't, I feel like that there won't be any zoning available with churches and schools already being churches and, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I'm sorry, you guys. Okay, so if you adapt for the churches and the parks, it would eliminate a lot of zoning for any person of storefronts or even processing. So thank you. Sorry. Don't do this normally, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You did good.
Shiloh Belgard, Lompoc. I didn't properly introduce myself last time, and since you guys said it's Native American Heritage Month, I'd like to introduce myself. Bonjour, Mikanakwaju Dunji, Shiloh Belgard. Hello, my name is Shiloh Belgard. I'm from the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians in North Dakota. So I appreciate you guys bringing that up earlier today. But agenda on hand, I have a few things in my phone, but first of all, I was thinking about coming up here and making it a church and cannabis thing, when really all we need to do, everybody in this room, is be educated on cannabis itself. First of all, I'm going to start with the very word Christ, by the implication of the language origins and true meaning, gives us the most profound evidence that Jesus did in fact use the same herb as his ancient Semitic ancestors, and which is still used by the people around the world for its enlightening and healing properties. If you know the truth will make you free. John 8:32, said by Jesus himself. As I was younger, we had a war on drugs. In order for children to understand cannabis, it starts at home. Just like I was taught about how dangerous pot was back in the day when there was a war on drugs. I personally use that and I practice what I preach. I let my kids know everything about the life that is outside of our walls. And I recommend everybody else also doing that, not just with cannabis, but life itself. There's far more greater things to worry about in this city than the regulations, ordinances, and everything else to do with cannabis, and we have to look further into taking care of those problems after this issue is resolved also. Another thing is that knowledge speaks and wisdom listens. That's how we all learn. That's how we evolve the way we think about things. If people don't come forth and speak to the people in the higher positions that can make a difference in the community and make our community better, then all of that, what I just said, is basically nothing at all. But it was something. And I hope every single person in this room and every single person listening on television understands that if you don't educate yourself in changes, you will always be closed-minded and you'll never progress forward. That goes for business, that goes for beliefs, and that also goes for life itself. Thank you, and thank you, City of Lompoc.
Thank you, sir.
Lompoc.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Camarina Sankey. I'm third generation, born and raised in Lompoc, California. I just wanted to make a point. If my child doesn't go to school, I go to jail. They don't get an education. If my daughter doesn't have a daycare to go to, I don't have a job, I don't have a place to live, I'm in the riverbed with a needle in my arm. If I don't go to church, nothing happens. There's no consequence. Maybe my faith or whatever, I understand you gain from being in that community and all that whatnot, but my utility bills aren't being paid from being at church on Sunday. There aren't things, there are consequences for not having my child at school. There are consequences for not having a daycare for my child. There aren't really consequences for my kid not going to church because there's a dispensary across the street, which I don't think anybody would want to be like, let's just go right next to the church so we can tell everyone, hey, go to Foursquare and take a left. We're not forcing anyone to smoke pot. We're not forcing anyone to have it in their life or anything. But you want to force us to not have it in our lives? That's just rude. That's just plain rude. It's unfortunate the most judgmental people in this room are the ones that are supposed to be the holiest or whatever.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, coalition members, and citizens of Lompoc. On behalf of the Lompoc Valley Cannabis Coalition, medicinal cannabis patients, recreational enthusiasts, and the 57% majority of constituents in this city of Lompoc who enacted Proposition 64, I would like to thank you, and I would like to thank you for your perseverance, your judgment, and leadership in crafting Ordinance Number 1640, for closing the curtain on the age of prohibition, and for turning a 20th century problem into a 21st century solution worthy of a standing ovation. I understand that a portion of our community may be confused, worried, upset, or even angry by the actions that we have advocated for. Your concerns have not fallen on deaf ears. Many, if not all of your concerns are outlined in the entirety of Proposition 64. However, I am concerned that biblical history may have indeed fallen on deaf ears. As a born-again Christian, I believe in Jesus as the Christ and believe in the documentation outlined in the Apostles' Creed. I also believe that cannabis is found throughout the Bible and that Jesus himself used cannabis in his ministry. The book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 12 of the New King James Version states, "And the earth brought forth grass, and the herb that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And God saw that it was good." Again in Genesis 1:29, the New King James Version, it states, "And God said, See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed to you, it shall be for food. Also to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food." And it was so. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. If God says something is good, who are we to say that it isn't? Indeed, Scripture states in Isaiah chapter 5, verses 20 through 23, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who substitute darkness for light and light for darkness, who substitute bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Who to those who are wise in their own eyes and clever in their own sight? Woe to those who are heroes in drinking wine and valiant men in mixing strong drink, who justify the wicked for a bribe and take away the rights of the ones who are right." Perhaps it's just a coincidence, but I take a special note in the fact that God created the herb on the sixth day and decided to rest on the seventh.
Thank you, sir.
I know that people are concerned, but this is what the people voted for,
Okay.
and you should honor their will.
Okay. Anyone else?
Greetings, Mayor, City Council members, Lompoc City staff, and community members. My name is Darren Hunt, and I've resided in Lompoc with my family for the past decade. I moved to Lompoc in 2007 to serve as pastor of Lompoc First Assembly of God Church, now named New Hope Christian Church. I served faithfully the adults, children, and youth of this church until 2016, when I began a new season of my life as an associate pastor at Lompoc Foursquare Church. As part of these two great churches and my affiliation with several other pastors and churches in our community, I've seen firsthand, and no doubt you yourselves have as well, the numbers of children and youth that attend and are served by our Lompoc community churches on any day of the week. My job as pastor or associate pastor, and this goes really for any pastor, church leader, you yourselves as council members, is that of shepherding, leading, guiding, and protecting those under our care. While I've largely remained quiet regarding this cannabis ordinance, seeing it more as a symptom of a hurting society that will not be cured by abolition or overregulation. But I'm not here tonight to argue for or against cannabis, but there's something unsettling about this ordinance that I can't remain quiet about. The state of California, as lengthy as the regulations of Prop 64 are, and this city council, as much deliberation as has gone into this ordinance, have overlooked a key group of individuals that deserve your protection. That is the children and youth who attend the various churches and religious organizations, hoping for the opportunity to not only grow and mature in faith, but also prepare to launch into society as young adults. You've heard from church leaders, you've heard from our pastor, and we're not here to discriminate against anyone or say no one's welcome at the church. But I'm speaking as a resident of Lompoc and a father to please include churches of every faith denomination who serve children and youth in the prohibited buffer zones afforded to daycares and youth centers. I believe this is a huge miss on the part of the state of California and on a part of our city of Lompoc that can be corrected tonight if you, our city's elected officials, will so determine. As a parent, I try to do everything I can to protect my children from the influence of alcohol, tobacco, drugs. I know they will be exposed to it from various sources that I can't protect them from, but I take comfort knowing that a dispensary cannot open up across their street from their school, and I'd love to be afforded that same relief, that the church that they've chosen to attend and serve in on weekends and weekdays will not expose them to the cannabis industry that will want to market to them as future customers. This is not about our church or any church, but about our children. And I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you very much, sir. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor Lingle and fellow council members. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is John DeFriel. I'm a farmer in the San Ynez Valley. With the change of politics in the state and county, farmers have been afforded the opportunity for a crop change to occur and to utilize existing agricultural infrastructure in the county to take advantage of a new industry. Many of the similar uses are already in place in Lompoc, with numerous wineries spread out all over the city and produce coolers from the berry, broccoli, and lettuce industries that surround Lompoc. This is just another opportunity for Lompoc to take advantage of its rich agricultural tradition surrounding the county, surrounded by the county land, and embrace this opportunity. We are also all members of the community here in the cannabis operators, and as well as all of our employees. We currently have about 65 employees on our farm, about 25 of which are residents of the city of Lompoc. If afforded the opportunity to move our processing facilities into the city of Lompoc, we envision creating another 65 jobs in the next 12 months. We also offer health insurance benefits to all of our employees. There's actually immense data available in Washington and Colorado regarding the safety around permitted facilities. Washington State initially had a 1,000-foot ban from sensitive receptors and dropped it to 100 feet. And California has allowed municipalities to decrease the setbacks all the way to 0 feet should they choose to do so. Now, this happens because the regulators in Washington and Colorado watched what happened to the permitted facilities, and they noticed that there was actually a crime decrease in these areas because there was so much regulation around this industry, more regulation than any other businesses in any of these areas, that the operators are forced to enact greater security measures than any other industries that exist in Lompoc today. We'll be required to have cameras piped into to the police. We will have fencing and alarms and motion detectors. Many facilities will run 24-hour operations with people on site constantly. With a responsible ordinance put in place following all state regulations, you will encourage responsible operators to move into the area. We've heard a lot of concerns about public safety, but I did not hear any evidence from anything that's happened historically that leads one to believe that operations lead to crime or children increasing in consumption. It is illegal at the state level to market towards children. No one is trying to turn children into cannabis users. We're family members. We have children as well.
Sir.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I just wanted to say, my name is Joseph Dowdy. I've lived here for 10 years. I just wanted to say that I believe that if we apply the same regulations to the cannabis industry that we apply to alcohol, there won't be any unusual problems. And I think that if people in the church community have something to object about, that they should have objections about alcohol. I mean, alcohol can be very problematic, you know. You could go to any AA meeting and you'll see tons of reasons why there shouldn't be liquor stores near churches if the churches are really that concerned about it. So I hope that you will continue to have an open door policy with regards to the regulation and zoning for cannabis. I look forward to it. I haven't used marijuana in 35 some years, and I look forward to being able to legally go in and purchase something if I want. I think that this whole process in the past year has been a great exercise in what freedom is about. A majority of people saying this should be allowed, and this is something that we can do because we're adults, and we can take care of our kids. We can make sure that our kids are protected from things that they're not ready for. So I hope that you'll continue to have the same open door approach that you have had towards cannabis after all the lengthy discussions in the past year. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Seeing no one rise, we're going to close public comment and bring it back to the council. Okay, who wants to start? Councilmember Osborne.
I appreciate that an ordinance that has been completed has drawn the attention of the entire community. I also want to say thank you to all the churches for all the work you do with youth in our community, and you will need to continue to do that. You are an important role in our community. But the legal aspect of trying to, A, define what a church is, and then implement it, is something the state stayed away from for a very good reason. And we are attempting locally to implement everything the state mandated, along with what we felt locally was important to pay attention to. So the ordinance that was written has everything from the state applied. Any cannabis industry that comes to town will have to not only meet the additional things we have put in ours, but everything the state mandates, and every entity that is getting involved at the state level, which isn't just the Bureau of Cannabis Control. It depends on the license you're pulling, and you might have to talk with the Food and Agricultural Department. You might have to deal with public health and safety. So there's that. And then locally, every department will probably have a hand in your cannabis industry because of it going through planning, building, fire, public safety, city manager's office, taxation, fees. So there will be huge oversight to an industry that has never had it. At the same time, to those who have supported this, I must remind you, while you have political will currently on the dais, if an election happens and that political will changes up here, someone could move it to change and you lose all your investment. This is a social experiment that we are willing to try, but realize that that's what it is. So we need to work really hard to be partners in this community, respect and educate those that are fearful of the changes it might bring, help those that are trying to help our children not start into utilizing any sort of mind-altering uses of drugs, alcohol, cannabis, anything else, so that they have the guidance and make the decision as an adult when it's the right time, if they want to experiment or utilize these products on their choice. So again, I've worked really hard on this. I've been passionate about writing this policy. I have been called the weed queen, and I have also been called some not so nice things. But I believe that this is the way forward for our community. So please, be respectful of each other, work on this together. When there are issues, bring them to our attention. This ordinance is not set in concrete. The ordinances coming out of the state are not set in concrete. This is constantly going to change. It's going to be needed to be adapted as we see issues or as changes come through that are affecting our community. We're going to make sure that this is a safe environment. And if it impacts our staff and it impacts public safety, we're going to come to you as the cannabis community and say, help us solve this. So that's what I'm looking for. Thank you again to the religious community for coming out and sharing your concerns. Unfortunately, this is an area I don't feel comfortable trying to define. Again, the state gave us definitions. If yours was a solely youth ministry, if all you did was have service for children and that's the only people that were present, you might be able to argue to me that it was serving youth. But you serve an entire community, from the young to the old, and I appreciate that. And out of respect for what you're doing for our community, I need to show respect for the cannabis community who has been present at the table and working really hard on this. So thank you for coming forward, and the next time there's this big of an issue, start early and be a part of the solution, because that's the only way I think that we could have avoided this, was to have known what your concerns were early. That's where I stand on this, but if there is political will up here to discuss it, I'm happy to.
Councilmember Mosby.
If the city attorney would help me out with a section here, I just wanted to read out for the people, which is of the ordinance, page 4 of 16, paragraph C. If you could read it.
Certainly. The city council finds and determines it expressly and impliedly does not intend to and does not create any vested right for any real property owner, tenant, commercial cannabis business owner, personal cannabis user, or anyone else by the enactment of this chapter or any rule or regulation adopted pursuant hereto, or by any commercial cannabis use license or any permission granted pursuant to this chapter. The City Council reserves the right at any time to modify, repeal, rescind, and amend any provision of this chapter and any resolution, regulation, or rule adopted hereunder. To take out all the legal gobbledygook, because I'm sure that's what you want me to do, basically what this says is, as Councilman Osborne mentioned, the ordinance that's being adopted, if it is adopted now. And if the council determines that there's any public reason or public interest that causes you to want to change anything in the ordinance, including getting rid of the whole ordinance and prohibiting marijuana, cannabis use completely, except as allowed by state law, you can do that. This does not restrict you from doing that, and it doesn't grant any right to someone using it. As I said before, though, I want to make sure you understand, if someone spends a lot of money to start a business, we probably would have to go through what's called an amortization period, and we wouldn't be able to shut them down immediately. We'd probably have to give them a few years to be able to amortize the cost.
Thank you. I think that's important for the people who are understanding that, granted, as Councilmember Osborne said, this is a large social experiment, and I've said that as well, that we've entered into. And I've read a supermajority of Prop 64, the 465 pages, and I suggest everybody get familiar with that and see the length of regulation. And I've discussed, I think it's a lengthy, hard document to get through. I was discussing that with the city attorney earlier today, and to understand that what we're doing here is a mass regulation. And if we throw this away, and if you think cannabis is not going to be in Lompoc, if you think it's not going to be across, well, let me put the Foursquare Church. I own property across the street from you guys. I am not putting in a cannabis facility across your street. All right, so hopefully that'll put you to ease a little bit there. But the intensity of regulation that is involved here, and that's what we're trying to do, is regulate something. If we don't regulate it, you're turning it back to the shadows and the alleys. And if you feel that there's something, come to us. And this is a document we're willing and trying to make better. I hear what you're saying with the 600-foot. I think those who are really concerned, and generally when I've talked to people in the public and such, when we've looked at the maps and we've gone through the maps and people really see where it can or can't go, and if you look at those blue circles around everywhere, I think it takes a lot of tension out of the air when people really realize how few places there will be. There's not going to be one on every corner. And please, look at the maps, check them out, maybe talk to some of the people who own the property if you have a level of concern. I think you're going to find, even though we said the words free market up here, that doesn't mean it's going to be on every corner and every block. It is very, very restricted. There's a long, lengthy process to get through, and I think we've kept it relatively simple, but there's another 465 pages plus that attach to this document with state regulations. And there's more being developed all the time. So there is a book behind this document, a big book. And again, I appreciate the attorney for reading that paragraph to us, and it's important for people to understand that that's there.
Councilman Vega.
Now it's my turn as part of the ad hoc committee. We did have an open mind going through this. As a parent myself, and I have grandkids also, I would never advocate any use of the cannabis, drugs, alcohol. It's part of life that people are going to be, they're going to rub elbows with a lot of things in life, and I think that I do agree with the gentleman that said we should be a little bit more open-minded about at least the opportunities, and be open-minded with our children to say, hey, what are the ill effects and what are the positives? There's probably I've run into people that have actually had medical conditions, which basically the will of the people, you know, when you run into people that have anxiety, I've run into people that were epileptics, people that have come up to me that said, hey, this eases whatever I'm going through. You know, you have to have compassion for these people. It could be anyone, it could be anybody that's on the street. You have to, when you see people in pain or suffering, it makes you look at things a little bit different. The churches, hey, I applaud you. I mean, hey, my family, we've all grown up through the churches, and I advocate any use. I would not advocate any use by children or anybody that was ill-educated, and I wouldn't be a positive proponent of anybody that would try and sell this or provide it to any kids, you know, or youth. You know, I think that they deserve to have their youth and grow up as children, and in that innocent side before they really have to grow up, you know, and see what real life has to offer. So again, with all due respect, and I applaud the other people that have been proponents or opponents that have attended the ad hoc committees, which lasted several months. This wasn't a quick decision-making process. This is actually doing your homework, and without these regulations, I don't think anybody would have advocated for it, except there's a lot of rules and regulations. There's going to be investments involved, and there's going to be responsibilities that are going to be attached to this. In the ordinance, as you can see, the city manager, city attorney, council has all tried to implement things that would actually, instead of being a negative to public safety, yes, it's an add-on to what their responsibilities are, but we want to make sure that you guys understand that we back public safety just like we would back your safety. We don't want anybody coming in with your businesses and taking advantage. And so, again, thank you guys for your participation. It's a very difficult decision, but the will of the people right now, I think we have to advocate that. Thank you.
Okay, my turn. Okay, so the will of the people, and I've been corrected once, so hopefully I'll get it right tonight. 57% of the voters of Lompoc did vote for Proposition 64, but that also means that 43% of the population of Lompoc voted against Proposition 64. And I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. We are supposed to represent all the people, and I do not see where we have taken the 43% seriously. We've taken the 57% seriously. We're saying that Prop 64 passed, it's a law, but actually if you look at Prop 64, that allows you to, number one, marijuana is legal by Proposition 64. It allows you to use recreational marijuana. It allows you to grow, is it 6 or 7 plants? 6 plants, okay, inside your house. It does not allow outside growth. It does not, it does not say that we have to allow outside growth. By what it is by law, cannabis is legal, and we have to allow people to smoke it. And we have to allow you to have 6 plants inside your house. You know, also attached to the ordinance was some public comment from people that were not allowed to attend. I'd like to take a few minutes. I think it's important we take a few minutes to read some of the things that were written. One of the comments from an email, all the council members received this, and it's part of the agenda. General comments pertaining to the proposed ordinance. And I've said this before, this policy was developed without the input and recommendations from either the public safety or the planning commissions. This is important to me. Okay, the ad hoc committee, and I thank you for the work you did, but the public safety planning commission was not part of this decision. I think that's important to note that this was not it's not a policy that was written with input from the entire city. Should this ordinance prohibit visible outdoor cultivation of cannabis? Well, the Health and Safety Code, Section 11362, point 2, parentheses A, requires that personal cultivation, living plants are in a locked space and are not visible by normal unaided vision from the public place. The view in the backyard from a utility worker climbing a pole is to be protected as well. Service trucks, emergency vehicles, solid waste vehicles. This is why, and we've not even addressed the locked outside space. We've heard this tonight. Should the 600 and 1,000 feet exclusion include houses of worship? If you want to listen to the 43%, let's listen to some of these people that mentioned it tonight. Should the ordinance address separate distance between commercial cannabis retailers in a storefront? I don't think we address that in our ordinance. In a shopping mall, we could have 3 dispensaries in a shopping mall as long as it's outside one of the 600-foot exclusion areas. Section 9.36, commercial cultivation, paragraph C states, pursuant to Title 17 of this code, agribusiness is allowed, or industrial businesses, park districts, and establishments. Should you amend the general plan and zoning? Should we take a look at our general plan and zoning to amend it to abide by this? We haven't addressed that. There's a lot of things, and I mentioned this last time. This policy is not clear and not concise. You know, Proposition 64, it is my belief, maybe I'm wrong, but it's my belief that a good portion of the 57% of Lompoc that voted for Prop 64 voted for 3 reasons: to decriminalize marijuana, to allow personal use of marijuana, and to make medical marijuana available to those that might benefit from the use. The 57%, my belief, a portion of that 57% voted for those 3 reasons. They did not vote to have dispensaries scattered throughout the community. They did not vote for the city to allow growing and cultivation and retail sales of marijuana. You can wave your finger all you want. This is my belief, okay? And it's a belief of many others, it is. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion, but before I make this motion, I want to let you know something. This council, I want you to know something. There is a group of citizens that have met last week. They'll be meeting again tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. This group of citizens is prepared to move forward with a public referendum that, and they need 10% of the registered voters to sign this referendum. They'll present this referendum to the Voters Registrar's office in Santa Barbara. They have 30 days to do this. If we pass this resolution, or this amendment, if we pass this tonight, they have 30 days to present this to the Voters Registrar's office. All they have to do is present the signatures on this. What that will do will put a ban or a hold on this ordinance until the November 2018 election. So, council, I want you to think about this. If we pass this ordinance as it is tonight, this group of people, starting tomorrow, they've already talked to the paid solicitors, paid people that go out and get the signatures. They will need approximately about 1,000, 1,200 signatures in here in Lompoc to permanently, not permanently, temporarily stop this ordinance until the voters of Lompoc vote on the ordinance, not on Proposition 64, vote on this ordinance. And that will go on the ballot November of 2018. So the motion I'd like to make is number one, to reject this ordinance. B, to thank and then disband the ad hoc committee. They did their jobs, and I'm not criticizing them for what they did, but they did their jobs. They presented everything, they brought it to the council, they brought it to staff, but I think their job is done, so I think it's time to disband the ad hoc committee. And then send this ordinance back to staff for a rewrite that includes and addresses some of the public comments that were made tonight, the public comments that were submitted to us, and also to include all of the departments in this city, the police, the fire, the planning department, the planning commission, parks and recreation, human resources. Include the departments. This is what other cities in the state, this is what other cities in the county have done. They did not do it in a vacuum. They included this entire city. If you've been reading the paper, you saw what the county of Santa Barbara has done. They've included all of their departments. So, that is my motion. A, to reject this ordinance, disband and thank the ad hoc committee, and then send it back to staff for a rewrite that includes all of these items. That'll be my motion, and I'd like to see a second, because there's a meeting coming up tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock that could hold this thing until November of 2018, if we pass this ordinance tonight. So I'm looking for a second. Okay, without a second, my motion fails, and I will entertain another motion.
No clapping. I'm sorry. This is a very serious discussion, and you need to take it seriously. But I will say that the cannabis community threatened recalls while we were discussing it if we didn't pass it. There are threats for recalls for passing it. Now there is political pressure trying to be applied to us to not do something that a majority believes we're moving in the right direction on. These are all your political purvey as a community, and you absolutely should exercise those rights. So if this group feels that this is their best effort to change the discussion, they have every right to do it, and I will respect that. But I have been told I am a policy-making board, that it is my expectation to respect and watch the community as a whole. And yes, I have paid attention to the 57% because, again, they have been present the whole time. There has not been a presence of that 43% at the discussions. And I looked for you, and I invited you, and I would have one. I'd have a phone call. I'd have an email. That's not participating. Tonight has been the first participation, and it wasn't strong enough to change because it didn't have any legal boundaries I could respect. Again, defining a church. That is not something I am willing to work on. So, out of respect for moving this policy forward with all of its flaws, and yes, it has flaws, but it is about to be circulated to all the departments because it is now an ordinance. And until the departments actually have an ordinance to look at and begin to build what it will take to implement it, we actually couldn't have given them a task. They could have participated and helped writing it, but until they have an ordinance, they can't come back and say, this is going to be our workload, this is what we recommend the application to look like, these are the fees we're going to need to recover, this is the impact it's going to have on our public safety department because it might take a dedicated person to do this work. These are the changes that might have to happen in the general plan or the zoning ordinance to adopt this because you're outside of those things. All of these discussions are still going to happen. All of these departments are going to get involved in this, and that might trigger us reevaluating some portion of the ordinance based on feedback these departments will be giving us. So those departments will be seeing it. The ordinance is the beginning of this process, and you have to have the framework of an ordinance first to move forward to those next sections. So stay engaged, stay with this conversation, and I'm going to make a motion to accept the ordinance as we've written it tonight and look forward to continuing to work through this process and making the changes as they need to happen, either by recommendation of our staff or recommendation from the community based on your experience while going through this.
Do we have a second?
I'll make a second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, the only discussion I have is think about the vote you make tonight, because you could be stalling everything until November of 2018. So let's vote. Okay, that passes 3-1 with 1 absence. Okay. So we're moving on to written communication.
Nothing more than you've already received.
Okay, oral communication. This is your last opportunity to speak to us for up to 2 minutes on any item that can come before the council.
Dwayne Holmdahl, local resident. I just wanted to let everybody know last night, or yesterday afternoon, we gave the library a check for over $3,000 in monies that we earned through the Turducken Dinner Group. The overall program on that, we went through or took care of that, and they've used it at the library. But we were able to raise over about a 10-year period, I've lost the number of years, but somewhere around 10 years, almost $200,000. So I just wanted to let everybody know that's what we wound up doing. And the citizens of Lompoc are the ones that helped put up the money. So thank you, Bob.
Okay, thank you. Next, please.
Hi, I'm Jill Hunt. Oh, that's loud. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I just wanted to kind of address Councilwoman Osborne. You continue to repeat we're coming to the game late, but the previous maps actually show our churches as buffer. We had a buffer area as far back as October 4th. So it wasn't an issue. So anyway, I just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Don Buck, and tonight I want to thank you publicly, Bob, Mayor Lingle, for your comments. I applaud that. And I know collectively it's a very, very hard thing to make a decision on. And I'm part of that silent community, and I should have been probably more vocal, but you guys are wearing some tough shoes right now, and you're trying to please all with a very difficult proposition. But thank you for what you're doing. Appreciate it, all of you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next, please.
Council members, Mayor. Again, I'd like to thank the council members for passing this ordinance. I understand that this group that exists and Mr. Andrew Salazar's participation in that group. And I'd like to say that starting tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, the same time this meeting begins, I'm going to begin an exploratory committee to recall you, Mayor Bob Lingle. I have already put in a public records request, and I hold 17,000 of your emails in my hand. And I believe that these emails are going to show that you're not quite the person that you have presented yourself to be in this community. And I'm going to actively work to make sure that you are no longer our mayor. Thank you.
Well, I hope you make them all public too, because I think you'll be surprised too. Okay, anyone else? And by the way, if anyone else wants copies of any emails or any public communication that I make, yeah, just get them from him. Yeah, I have no problem with that. So, okay, anyone else? Okay, we're going to close public comment, bring it back to the council. Council request comments and reports. We'll start with Councilmember Mosby.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Vega.
I've been asked to, it's Veterans Day weekend, this weekend. I've been asked to post a reminder that there'll be a dedication at the Veterans Memorial Building this Saturday at 11 a.m. and the public's invited, and it's a nice event, so I really would wish that we get a bunch of people out there, okay? 11 a.m. Saturday for a Veterans Memorial Day dedication. Thank you.
Councilmember Osborne.
First, I'd like to ask those that are talking in the audience to take it out into the lobby. It makes it very difficult for us to hear. We can't actually hear all the chatter up here, and it does make it difficult on the recording. Thank you guys so much for taking that outside. So to repeat, there is a veterans celebration at 11 a.m. that Councilmember Vega was trying to note the public for. I attended the Healthy Eating, Active Living, Heal Regional Conference last week as a representative of the city of Lompoc, which was one of the first HEAL communities. And it was very interesting to see what other communities are doing to engage in healthy eating and active living. And I will bring back some requests from council at a later date that would help take us to the next level. We have identified ourselves as a community. We have things in place here at City Hall as a workplace and at some of our venues, but I think there are some exciting things that we could do as a community to help everyone be healthy eating and active living. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And let's see. On the 24th of last month, I attended the EVA Awards for the Cypress Gallery. On the 25th and 26th, I was at a Northern California Power Agency meeting, which is an agency that the city belongs to, in Roseville. The city did pay my mileage. I used my own vehicle, and they paid for a hotel room for me. On the 27th, I attended the grand opening of our new Hilton Garden Inn. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, it is an absolutely gorgeous building, something we should all be proud of here in Lompoc. On the 28th, the city manager and myself, along with many city employees and a lot of the public, participated in Make a Difference Day. From about 9 till noon, we were out pulling weeds, spreading mulch, and everything else. It did make a difference. I was working up at Beatty Park, and it really looks nice up there. We did a business visitation, which we do on a regular basis to different businesses in town. We did this past week. The city manager, myself, Assistant City Manager Teresa Gallivan, and Jasmine, I believe. We went over to Denmat. What we do at these meetings, and we just sort of feel how's the business going for you? Can we do anything better? What are the differences that you've seen since you've moved here? Mostly positive comments. They're really glad to be here. I think one of the negative things, and it's in the city manager's report under economic development, they commented that they would like to see us do something about their entrance to Denmat is an alley, or not an alley, it's a road in the back, and there's a lot of recreational vehicles, parked cars, just making a kind of a messy for their entrance. So, I mean, I brought it up once before. I'd like to do something about the recreational vehicles, trailers on our city streets. I wasn't successful, but bring it up to the rest of the council. Maybe someone in the future wants to bring that up again, because it does make a difference for this large business. They'd like to see us do something about it. Also on the 1st, I was on the 1st, I did that. Also on the 1st, I attended a flag presentation. Senator Jackson presented a flag to our Veterans Memorial Building. It was a flag that had flown over the state capitol. And unfortunately, the previous one that she gave to us was stolen from the Veterans Building. So she came out last week and gave us another one, which was very nice. And as Dwayne Humdahl mentioned, yesterday I attended a little celebration over at the library where the Traducan Dinner Group that I was a member of for a number of years, we presented our last check. We've sort of disbanded now, presented our last check to the library. And it's for a little over $300, or $3,000. And for a total of almost $200,000 over the past 10 years, yeah, over the past 10 years, so. Okay, and with that, unless there's anything else, we will adjourn. We're going to adjourn the City Council meeting to a regular meeting at 6:30 p.m. on November 21st. Thank you for attending, and good night.